25-year-old man went out for a run on a quiet Sunday afternoon. He had no phone, wallet, or weapons on him to protect himself. All he had was his running shoes and a familiar route through the neighborhood. But within minutes, three men decided that he didn't belong there. They grabbed their guns, got in their trucks, and started chasing him. He ran fast, he tried to get away, but the exits were blocked and he was trapped in a neighborhood with nowhere left to go. And in less than 5 minutes, what started as a jog turned into a recorded execution in the middle of the street. This is the story of Ahmaud Arbery, a young man who was hunted and killed in broad daylight, and when you hear why the system stood still for 74 days before anyone was arrested, you'll see that corruption is very much so still alive. Welcome to the True Crime Nurse, everybody. My name is Kat, and I'm a registered nurse who loves all things nursing and true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell before you go. All right, my friends, get ready because I fully anticipate you being enraged when you hear today's case, so I'm sorry in advance. Ahmaud Marquez Arbery was born on May 8th, 1994 in Brunswick, Georgia. He was the youngest of 3 kids born to Marcus Arbery Sr. and Wanda Cooper Jones. His family and friends lovingly called him Maud or sometimes Kez, which was short for Marquez. He had a sister named Jasmine and an older brother named Marcus Jr., who played football at Brunswick High School. Ahmaud followed in his big brother's footsteps, as many little brothers do. Brunswick is a small coastal city in Glynn County, Georgia, and it's about 70 miles north of Jacksonville, Florida, and 80 miles south of Savannah. It is a beautiful town filled with tidal marshes, barrier islands, and live oaks draped in Spanish moss. Ahmaud grew up in a neighborhood in Brunswick proper, which is the kind of community where people know each other for multiple generations, and children grow up alongside the same families for their entire childhood. Ahmaud's parents separated when he was little, but his mom, Wanda, became the apple of his eye. She said that Ahmaud was a homebody when he was little because he was quite shy, but he was close to family and more introverted than a lot of kids his age. She had to encourage him to spread his wings from time to time because of this. His best friend from childhood, named Akeem Baker, grew up in the same apartment complex, and he wanted to be Ahmaud's friend in school so badly, specifically in 2nd grade, that he began bringing snacks and cookies to the bus stop to have a reason to talk to him. This worked, and their friendship would last the rest of Ahmaud's life. Ahmaud tried out for the Brunswick High School Pirates football team during school just like his big brother. He stood at about 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighed 164 pounds at the time. Now, this may sound undersized for a linebacker position, but he was impressive and talented. His coach, John Vaughn, who was also the U.S. history teacher at the school, talked about the time that he first realized what kind of athlete he was looking at. His speed was astonishing, and his endurance was truly unbreakable. Coach Vaughn and the other coaches pushed them all as hard as they possibly could in practice just to wear them down, but he said that they could never wear out Ahmaud. He was both mentally and physically strong, which is a rare trait for a high schooler. What people talk about the most, though, when they bring up Ahmaud, wasn't his athletics. It was his warmth, his humor, and his presence. His cousin and close friend Demetrius said, "You could be walking past him in the community, the classroom, the football field, anywhere, man, and that smile is what makes your day." He was a natural mimic and comedian because he was gifted at impersonating the people in his life, and he could make anybody laugh. Coach Vaughn was one of his personal favorite targets. Vaughn described moments when he'd be having a bad day and Ahmaud would walk up next to him and slip into a pitch-perfect impression of Vaughn's own voice and mannerisms, telling students to get to class and don't be late, until Vaughn couldn't stop laughing. He said, "It was like a weight was falling off of me by being around him." I thought that story was so sweet and telling, so I wanted to share it with you guys because it tells us a lot about who Ahmaud really was. He seemed so empathetic and kind. His best friend, Akeem Baker, described Ahmaud as his hype man. He was the friend who encouraged him to try new things, branch out, pushed him harder, and refused to let anything ever get between the two of them. When Akeem went off to Morehouse College and was struggling in his chemistry class, Ahmaud told him, "When situations get hard, you've just got to get strong with it. In the end, you don't just go through it, you grow through it." When Akeem later got a better paying job than Ahmaud had because he was working at McDonald's at the time, Ahmaud told him, "I'm going to see you at the top." This young man was never in competition with anybody but himself. He truly operated from a place of genuine love for the people in his life, and that is such a beautiful and sadly uncommon quality. Ahmaud did run into some legal trouble for a weapons charge at a high school basketball game in 2013, which led to him being put on probation. This wasn't ideal for the future that he envisioned for himself, and this happened right after graduating high school. He made a mistake, but he was working to smooth everything out and make things right. Because of that probation, though, he was put in a position where by 2020, he needed to work and put off college for a little while before he could re enroll. Ahmaud saw his uncle work as an electrician, and so from a young age, he decided that he would do the very same thing someday. He enrolled at South Georgia Technical College in Americus in 2012 to get his electrician certification. He also worked at Blue Beacon Truck Wash, McDonald's, did landscaping, and he also worked alongside his father at Marcus Sr.'s car wash. He was an incredibly hard worker, more than most adults that I know. He also ran almost every day, sometimes 3 to 5 miles at a time, and oftentimes even more than that. Running for him was both physical and mental because it was some type of meditation. He ran through Brunswick and Satilla Shores, which is a subdivision just south of the city. Neighbors there had seen him jogging through the neighborhood on multiple occasions. On the morning of Sunday, February 23, 2020, he laced up his gray running shoes, put on a white t-shirt, and left his mother's home. He didn't have his phone, wallet, or any other belongings with him. He was completely unarmed and simply running. Wanda Cooper Jones later said that before she left that day, she told Ahmaud that she loved him, and he said it back. She's held on to that moment ever since. Before we get into what happened next on February 23rd, we need to talk about a few other key players in this case. Gregory Johns McMichael was 64 years old on the day that Ahmaud was killed. His entire professional career was spent in law enforcement in Glynn County and coastal Georgia. His career began in July of 1982 when he was hired on as a patrolman by Glynn County Police Department. 7 years later, in January 1989, he resigned from that position and joined the Georgia Department of Natural Resources as a ranger. By mid-1989, he had moved to Brunswick Police Department as a patrolman again, but he stayed only 1 month before leaving. Then, he spent a little over 5 years working in sales, first for a beer and liquor distributor, and then selling boats. In October 1995, he went back to the Glynn County Sheriff's Office as a deputy bailiff and stayed for only about 3 months before he moved the following month to the Brunswick District Attorney's Office, where he would work as an investigator until his retirement in May 2019. So, in total, he worked for the DA's office for nearly 24 years under District Attorney Jackie Johnson. This will be highly relevant in today's case. His evaluations during that time were great. Some of the notes in his evaluation said that he completes tasks in a timely manner, interacts well with his fellow employees, and that he often mediates conflicts. In 1996, he wrote a self-evaluation that said his strongest skills were his ability to get along with people and to assume responsibility, but that he finds it hard sometimes to accept criticism on certain subjects. So overall, it seemed that to many people on the outside, he had a great character, right? Well, beneath that record, there was a documented pattern that was extremely concerning. According to records that were all over the media, McMichael failed to complete required training hours in 2006, meaning that he lost his power to arrest that year. This is hugely important for someone working in law enforcement, and that would be like me letting my nursing license lapse and expecting to be able to still work as a nurse. He said that this was because of hardships going on in his personal life, though. He had a heart attack in 2006, clinical depression in 2009, and then he had a second heart attack followed by a bankruptcy filing from the overwhelming medical bills, not only from his own surgeries, but also for his wife's cancer treatment. DA Jackie Johnson personally intervened, writing a letter to the Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council, also known as POST, to advocate on his behalf, calling the whole situation a great embarrassment to me and to investigator McMichael. He was granted a waiver that allowed him to continue working during this time. In 2014, the Georgia Post Council issued him a formal warning for again failing to complete mandatory firearms and use of force training courses. His lack of proper certification between 2006 to 2014 meant that he had not legally held powers of arrest for 8 of the years that he was working in law enforcement. A 2014 internal email said that liability for any improper actions by Greg would fall on Greg and the DA's office and you personally to one of the leadership members. That email would be terrifying to receive. Then, in February 2019, so 1 year before today's case takes place, the Georgia Post Council issued a formal suspension order against McMichael for failure to maintain training for the year of 2018. The Memorandum of Understanding that DA Jackie Johnson signed at that time stated that Michael, quote, will not engage in any activity that would be construed as being law enforcement in nature. Mr. McMichael will not carry a firearm or badge, and he will not operate any vehicle in the motor pool outfitted with lights, sirens, or police radio equipment, end quote. He retired 3 months later in May 2019 as a civilian with no active law enforcement credentials. Now we're going to move on to the next person. Travis James McMichael was 34 in February 2020. He lived in a house with his dad, Gregory McMichael, yes, the man we just talked about, on Satilla Drive in Satilla Shores neighborhood. After graduating high school, he served in the United States Coast Guard from 2007 to 2016, working as a marine science technician and mechanic with posts in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and Kings Bay Naval Submarine Base in Georgia. After his Coast Guard service, he worked as a contractor at Kings Bay. Now, to get to know his character a little bit, an FBI intelligence analyst named Amy Vaughn recovered a ton of racially harmful language in his cell phone records and social media over many years. In January 2019, he sent a text saying that a restaurant, quote, needs to change the name from Cracker Barrel to insert racial slur here. In March 2019, he sent another message to a friend about a new job, and he wrote that he loved it there because there was zero of the same slur working at his workplace. Under a Facebook video showing a group of Black teenagers, he commented saying, "I say shoot them all." In response to a video of a Black man playing a prank, he wrote that he would kill that person using the same racial slur. He also shared a video of a song featuring an artist that associates himself with white supremacy. That song was being played over a video of a Black child dancing on the Ellen DeGeneres show. If this all isn't disturbing and sickening enough, in a separate Facebook post, he bragged that his shotgun, the same one that ended up taking Ahmaud Arbery's life, was loaded with especially powerful ammunition that would rip somebody to shreds. As if his own words and actions aren't concerning enough already, a former Coast Guard colleague named Christy Wanquile testified that while serving together in Pascagoula, Travis McMichael learned that she dated a Black man. He called her a racial slur on more than one occasion because of it. She did not report it at that time because she said that she was new in the military and didn't even know where to begin with how to handle this. A separate witness named Carol Sears said that Travis's father went on a racial tirade in front of her after hearing about the death of civil rights activist Julian Bond, saying that he wished all Black people would die. So we can assume that racial hatred and racism in general is taught within the McMichael family and that it certainly played a role in today's case. And the last man that we need some background on is William Roderick Bryan Jr. He was 50 years old at the time of Ahmaud's murder, and he also lived on Satilla Drive in the same neighborhood as the McMichaels. He was their neighbor. William had no law enforcement or military background, but he worked at a local hardware store in Brunswick as a mechanic. The same FBI officer, Amy, looked into Bryan's cell phone records, and I'm sure you can guess what she found. The record showed a pattern over several years of making derogatory comments about Black people, including on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. She found WhatsApp messages showing Bryan texting a friend about his daughter's new Black boyfriend, writing, "I've always told her that this is the only thing I would not accept." He sent that message the day before he helped chase down and kill Ahmaud Arbery. All right, I think that's enough on the background of these people that we're about to talk about now. Now, to get back to what happened, remember that Satilla Shores is a subdivision located just south of Brunswick where Ahmaud lived. It sits along the Satilla River, and the homes in the neighborhood include a mixture of smaller single-story houses and large waterfront properties with private docks. So it's a blend of high-end and more affordable homes. The McMichaels lived on Satilla Drive, and 2 doors down from them at 220 Satilla Drive was a house that was under construction owned by a man named Larry English Jr. He lived about 90 to 100 miles away in Douglas, Georgia in Coffee County. English bought this new property and planned to finish the house himself, but unfortunately he got sick, which delayed the project. So that home sat open with no doors, no windows, no fence, and there weren't any no trespassing signs posted on the property. English did install motion-activated surveillance cameras on the property in 2019, originally because he was concerned about some teenagers in the neighborhood playing near his dock. He believed that more than $2,000 worth of electronics had been stolen from his boat behind the house. So, when the cameras detected motion, they would send an alert directly to English's phone, which allowed him to monitor his property remotely. The surveillance footage captured a variety of people entering the property over the fall and winter of 2019 and into early 2020. Two white boys removed plywood from the garage, and a white man and woman were also captured entering the home at night with a small bag. English called 911 about the couple, telling the operator, "I know that they went in and stole from the boat and property." Despite these documented incidents involving other people, it wasn't until he saw footage of a young black man, believed to be at the time Ahmaud Arbery, that he became extremely worried to the point of involving neighbors. Security camera footage confirmed that Ahmaud Arbery did visit English's home 5 times between October 2019 and February 2020. His first documented visit was on October 25th, 2019. Then he returned again on December 17th, and he came back again on February 11th, exactly 12 days before he was killed. Each time, the footage showed the same thing. Ahmaud would walk around through the open house, then he would leave. He had no bag with him and didn't take or damage anything, unlike the others that have been through there. Larry English himself confirmed through the cameras that he never touched or took anything. It almost seemed that this was just a rest point for him, or maybe a place to get some shade during his runs. So, how and why did things escalate? Glynn County Police Officer Robert Rash, who regularly patrolled the Satilla Shores neighborhood, received the surveillance footage from English, and he was monitoring the situation. In December 2019, Rash approached Gregory McMichael in his front yard and showed him pictures of Arbery in the surveillance video, explaining that he thought McMichael would make an excellent witness given his law enforcement background. This was the arrangement that the officer came up with. If McMichael ever spotted that man, he needed to call the police. That was the full extent of what Rash expected of him. Rash said that he got a text from English 12 days before the shooting on February 11th saying that the man seen on cameras had never stolen or taken anything from the property, so this was in writing to that officer. The very same day, Travis McMichael called 911 because he saw Ahmaud Arbery enter the English property. Officer Rash responded to that call, but Ahmaud was already gone by the time that he got there. February 23rd, 2020 was a Sunday afternoon. The weather in coastal Georgia was a little warm, but still cool enough to run outside comfortably. Ahmaud left his mom's house and ran his familiar route through the Brunswick area and into the Satilla Shores neighborhood. The distance between Ahmaud's home and the English construction site on Satilla Drive was only about 1.8 miles, and remember, he was a long-distance runner, so this distance was pretty easy for him. At some point during that run, Ahmaud stopped at the English property for the 5th and final time. Surveillance footage captured him walking through the open garage, and he was only there for a little while. He took nothing, and then he left the property and continued running through the neighborhood, heading onto the roads that would bring him in the path of Gregory McMichael. A neighbor named Matt Albines also called the non-emergency line after seeing Arbery standing there and looking around inside of English's house, so an officer had already been headed that way. That call led to Officer Ricky Minshew being in the same area when things took a tragic turn. Now, what happened next is horrifying, and it all unfolded in less than 5 minutes. Gregory McMichael saw Ahmaud Arbery run past his house, and he immediately recognized him as the man from the surveillance video. He ran inside, called for his son Travis, and Travis grabbed his Remington 12-gauge shotgun. Gregory armed himself with a revolver, and together, they got into Travis's white Ford F-150 truck and chased Ahmaud down. Gregory McMichael hopped into the truck bed as Travis drove, still armed with his revolver, as the truck accelerated onto the street. Their neighbor, William Bryan, was watching from his porch, and when he saw that the McMichaels were chasing after a young black man, he walked inside, picked up his cell phone and truck keys, and got into his truck to join in on the chase. And then he started recording from his cell phone. Ahmaud knew that he was being chased, and he ran for his life, trying to dodge the people chasing him, but that chase would come to a fatal end at the intersection of Satilla and Holmes Drive. Travis McMichael stepped out of the truck with his shotgun in hand. What happened next was captured all on Bryan's cell phone in a 1-minute and 17-second clip. The video shows Ahmaud trying to run around the right side of the stopped truck as Travis McMichael moves to block him. The two men collided and Ahmaud grabbed for the shotgun. A struggle over the weapon started and Travis McMichael fired at him. The first shot rang out, followed by the second shot that missed. Then the third happened at a near point blank range. Ahmaud Arbery stumbled forward and then fell face down in the road. After Ahmaud fell, Officer Ricky Minshew arrived at the scene about 1 minute after those shots. He heard what he described as a death rattle coming from Arbery, and this is sadly something we hear in the nursing world too. He called for emergency medical services and he did not attempt to render any medical aid. He said, quote, "Without having any other police units to have my back, there was no way that I could switch to do anything medical and still watch for my own safety," end quote. McMichael placed his hand on his son's shoulder and told him, "I had no choice." And in the minutes before EMS arrived, Gregory McMichael described Ahmaud Arbery to officers as an a-hole. Gregory McMichael immediately called and left a voicemail to his former boss, District Attorney Jackie Johnson, and left a message. He said, "My son and I have been involved in a shooting and I need some advice right away." So, from the very first moment after killing a man, he was working his connections. Ahmaud Arbery was pronounced dead at the scene at only 25 years old. He had been carrying nothing, so his identity was confirmed through his fingerprints. His mom and family's heart shattered that day. But before we get too deep into what happened after this, we need to talk about the autopsy. On February 24th, so the day after Ahmaud had been murdered, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, or GBI forensic pathologist, Dr. Edmund R. Donahue, performed the autopsy. The first shot Travis McMichael fired struck Ahmaud's right wrist and the center of his chest at the same time. The report said that Ahmaud's right hand had been caught between the body and the muzzle of the gun when he pulled the trigger, which is consistent with him reaching for or grabbing the gun barrel during that struggle. He was trying to protect himself. That buckshot sadly passed through his wrist before hitting him in the chest. The wound to the right wrist tore through the radial artery and his veins, which did bleed profusely, but those wouldn't have been lethal on their own. The wound to the center of his chest was far more catastrophic. The buckshot broke several of Arbery's ribs. 5 ribs were fractured, and the bullet pierced his lower lungs, caused immediate and massive internal bleeding that he could not have recovered from. Autopsy photos showed a gaping hole in the center of his chest, and shotgun pellets were visible, protruding beneath the skin in both the front and back of his torso. X-rays of his body showed pellets lodged all throughout his chest cavity, too. Exit wounds from the pellets were visible in some of the pictures. Donahue stated that the first gunshot wound alone was fatal, not because of the wrist, but because of his chest. Ahmaud Arbery would have bled to death from that chest wound even if he'd not been shot a second time. That buckshot to the wrist and chest led to him bleeding profusely or hemorrhaging both internally into the chest and externally through the wounds through both his wrist and chest. There was nothing that EMS, surgeons, or first responders could have done to save his life at that point. But that wasn't the last time that he was shot. The second shot that Travis McMichael fired was a complete miss, but after racking the pump a second time, he fired again. This third shot was also fired at close range. The muzzle to target distance was estimated by Donahue at less than 20 inches away, and it ripped through Ahmaud's left armpit and into his left shoulder. This fractured his humerus, or the upper arm bone, and it ruptured major blood vessels in the shoulder too. Donahue confirmed that this wound was also independently fatal, so either shot alone would have killed him. In addition to the blood vessels, that third shot also severed multiple nerves in the brachial plexus, which is a nerve bundle that runs from the spinal cord through the shoulder to control the arm. An injury like this produces what Donahue labeled as Erb's palsy. Erb's palsy is the result of traumatic nerve injuries, and it causes immediate paralysis of the affected arm, with the arm hanging limply and the forearm rotating in a way called the waiter's tip position. This is when the arm is bent slightly back, and the wrist is also bent and the palm is facing outward. Donahue testified that while watching Brian's video frame by frame, he could see Ahmaud's left arm showing the posture of Erb's palsy in real time before he fell. He said he's paralyzed now and he can't use that arm to the jury. So not only did he walk them through the autopsy in court, he could also pinpoint frame by frame what exactly happened and when. The paralysis of his left arm combined with the destruction of his right wrist meant that when Ahmaud Arbery fell after that third shot, he fell face first on the pavement with no ability to break his fall. His arms literally couldn't respond and his hands couldn't catch him. The autopsy photos showed large abrasions or scrapes across his face, nose, cheek, and forehead because of that unguarded fall. That part made me really emotional when I read it. Close ups of his fingers also showed abrasions, but those injuries didn't come from the confrontation with McMichael. They came from him hitting the ground, further showing that he had no way to defend himself. Something that the defense attorney pressed the ME on, though, was the question of how Ahmaud Arbery could have continued to fight and struggle for the gun if that first injury would have been fatal. He was able to punch Travis McMichael after the first shot, so let's get into why that happened. The human body activates what Donahue described as the fight or flight reaction under extreme conditions, and we have talked about this a couple of times in recent cases as well. The adrenal glands flood the system with adrenaline, and the heart rate spikes dramatically. Blood pressure rises, and the body shuns blood away from non-essential systems like your gut, for instance, and it redirects it to the muscles so that you can run or fight to save your life. You can't really feel pain as much during these moments, and the body is chemically prepared to do whatever it takes to survive. Under these conditions, a person can sustain catastrophic injuries and continue to move, fight, or even run before the body shuts down. This is what the ME explained in court, and it's exactly why Ahmaud was able to still defend himself for a moment before finally hitting the ground. The autopsy also documented Ahmaud's physical assessment, which included his clothing and his belongings. His white t-shirt, which the video showed as white at the start of the fight, was completely saturated red through every fiber with blood. The shirt showed tears and holes, which were consistent with the entry and exit points, and his tan cargo shorts were also soaked with blood. His gray running shoes showed bloodstains on the heels, and the tread on the soles was worn down from the regular and frequent use of him running all the time. Donahue also mentioned botanical material found inside the wound to his left armpit area, and this came from plants that had entered during the fall on the roadway. The toxicology report found no alcohol and no prescription medications in his system, but it did detect a trace amount of THC. It was so little, though, that it wasn't even consistent with recent use. Ahmaud Arbery was completely sober at the time of his death, so he went for his run that afternoon, fully aware of everything that was going on. The official cause of death of the report, dated April 1st, 2020, was multiple gunshot wounds, and the manner of death was, of course, classified as homicide. Now, to bring us back to the crime scene immediately after the shooting, Glynn County Police CSI Sergeant Sheila Ramos arrived about an hour after the shooting. She took pictures of Ahmaud Arbery's body before it was moved. She also took pictures of his clothes, the shotgun, and the spent shell casings. Ramos found nothing on or near Arbery's body that could support any suspicion of theft, and the victim was unarmed too. Not to skip ahead, but at trial, the court was warned before Ramos presented her pictures to the jury. Ahmaud's father, Marcus, left the courtroom before any of the photos were shown, and he came back later to say, quote, "I thought of my son. I'm a strong man, and I'm not weak," unquote. Ramos walked the jury through the dozens of pictures that she took, and they were very hard to see, including close-ups of the gunshot wounds to Arbery's chest and armpit, his face bloodied and injured from the fall, his white t-shirt soaked through with blood, his gray running shoes bloodstained at the heels, and the treads that were worn down from him running frequently. This made the jury very emotional, and understandably so. I fully get why his dad had to step away too, because I don't think that I could handle seeing someone that I loved that way. The investigators also focused on the video evidence. The first video that they needed to look at was the footage from the English property at 220 Satilla Drive, which showed Ahmaud's 5 visits between October to February 2020. The footage was shown to the jury, and it confirmed that every time he was there, Arbery had no bag, took nothing, and caused no damage to the property. The jury also saw footage from the same cameras showing the white boys that had removed plywood from the garage and the white couple entering the property at night with a bag, just for comparison. The second piece of video evidence was shown from Brian's cell phone during the chase and the shooting. Brian's video ended up being longer than that 1-minute 17-second clip that was shared publicly, because the GBI confirmed that they had obtained a longer version of it. The longer video captured the tail end of the pursuit, the F-150 stopping in the road, Ahmaud running to the passenger side, Travis McMichael stepping out with the shotgun, the struggle, and then all 3 shots. He literally captured everything. Brian's video sat for more than 10 weeks without leading to any arrests, though. But on May 5th, 2020, a local attorney named Alan David Tucker, who had informally consulted with the three men, without being retained, by the way, gave the video to a Brunswick radio station called WGIG. Tucker said that his goal was absolute transparency, claiming that Gregory McMichael wanted the public to know the truth because he truly believed that the video supported that was self-defense. Within hours of WGIG publishing that video, it was on YouTube and other social media, and within 24 hours, it was everywhere. The country watched a man in horror as he was hunted and shot down in the middle of a street, and it didn't land at all how he hoped it would. As far as physical evidence goes, GBI investigators found Arbery's palm print on the rear door of Brian's truck, and there were also cotton fibers found near the truck bed that were forensically matched with Arbery's clothes. And this happened from him coming into contact with the truck as he was running away to get around and away from them. A GBI firearms expert named Brian Leopard examined Travis's shotgun, and he demonstrated its mechanics to the jurors using a demonstration weapon. Leopard explained that after each shot, the shooter had to manually rack the pump to eject the spent shell and chamber the next round. This means that after every shot, it required a conscious decision to do it over and over again, unlike your standard gun where you can shoot pretty rapidly with minimal effort. Travis McMichael fired 3 times. Once, then pumped, fired again and missing, pumped again, and fired a 3rd time at near point-blank range. I know I say this a lot, but these pauses gave him multiple chances to stop what he was doing and change his mind, but he didn't. GBI agents also used drones to map out the entire Satilla Shores neighborhood so that they could get an idea of the geography of the whole chase. The maps were submitted into evidence, and they showed Ahmaud's running path, the McMichael's route in the F-150, and Brian's path as he followed them in his truck. The maps confirmed that both neighborhood exits had been blocked at the same time by both of their vehicles, which means that they trapped Ahmaud in, leaving him completely helpless in that subdivision with no way to escape without passing either one of the people that were chasing him. That would have been absolutely terrifying. On May 19, 2020, those same agents executed a search warrant at the McMichael home to gather any missing evidence. They also looked at security footage from other neighbors' homes that were on that same path, but no new information came from it. Now I need to take a second to circle back to the important DA connection that I mentioned earlier. This can of worms is about to get a whole lot messier, so just stick with me here. This investigation was corrupted from the very beginning by the web of professional connections that Gregory McMichael had carefully cultivated over almost 4 decades in law enforcement. None of what I'm about to tell you is alleged, by the way. This is all factual, traceable information. On the day after the shooting, the Brunswick DA, Jackie Johnson, recused herself from this case because Michael had worked for her for almost 24 years. The case was then transferred to the Waycross DA, George Barnhill. DA Barnhill also had conflicts of interest in this case, though. His son worked for DA Jackie Johnson in the past, and he had also previously prosecuted Ahmaud Arbery in a case. That case just so happened to also involve Gregory McMichael. This was an incident in November 2017 when Ahmaud was sitting in his car and the officers questioned what he was doing, which then led them to removing him from his vehicle, and they attempted to use their taser on him. McMichael wasn't the officer that pulled him over, but from what I could find, he was working as an investigator for Jackie Johnson at the time. So this means that he may have had some involvement as an investigator. Now, DA Barnhill gave the Glynn County Police Department his opinion before he was even formally assigned to this case, and he said that he saw no grounds for arrest for any of the men. He doubled down on that in a formal letter to GCPD on April 2nd, 2020, writing that the McMichaels' conduct was perfectly legal before he then recused himself too. So he excused them and then stepped away. Murdering a young man for running who did nothing wrong is perfectly legal. And a DA said this. I'm sorry, you guys, but this is just absurd. Because of the now 2 DAs having conflicts of interest, the case moved to the Atlanta DA, Tom Durden, who received it on April 14, 2020, 8 weeks after the killing. Durden requested GBI intervention on May 5th, which is the same day that Brian's video went public from that local radio station. The GBI took the case the following morning, May 6th, and by the evening of May 7th, the agency established probable cause, secured arrest warrants from a Glynn County judge, and arrested Gregory and Travis McMichael at 7:45 p.m. I guess they didn't agree with DA Barnhill. They were booked into the Glynn County Jail and denied bond the following day, and William Bryan was arrested on May 21st, 2020. The GBI director, Vic Reynolds, held a press conference on the morning of May 8th, and he was asked why the GBI had so quickly accomplished what 3 DA offices and local police have failed to do in 74 days. He said, "I'm very comfortable in telling you that there is more than sufficient probable cause in this case for felony murder." Then he was asked about whether or not he was concerned about the 10-week delay, and his response was, "I would be foolish to tell you things would be better if I didn't get involved sooner." That speaks volumes. Glynn County Police said that the officers on scene on February 23rd were prepared to make arrests, but that they had been directed not to. Any guesses on who told them not to arrest anybody? Jackie Johnson, the former DA. The Glynn County Police Department was referred for an internal investigation because of that, which I'm sure you are just relieved to hear that as I am. In September 2021, a grand jury indicted DA Jackie Johnson on charges of violating her public oath to office and obstruction, accusing her of showing favor and affection to Gregory McMichael during the investigation. She also received those charges for ordering that Travis McMichael should not be placed under arrest. On June 24th, 2020, a Glynn County grand jury returned indictments against all 3 men on 9 counts, including malice murder, 4 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit false imprisonment. The case was handled by the Cobb County DA's office under DA Joyette Holmes, who was the 4th prosecutor assigned to this case. This was after it had been transferred over 300 miles from Southeast Georgia to the Atlanta metro area. Ahmaud Arbery's family welcomed this transfer, though, because this may have been their only shot at an unbiased and fair trial. Jury selection began on October 18th, 2021. The jury selection became pretty tense, though, because attorneys questioned hundreds of potential jurors, and the defense turned down many of them to the point that the judge put on the record that the pattern of strikes that they were putting out there appeared to show intentional discrimination. Can you believe that? 23 witnesses testified in 8 days before they finally rested their case on November 16th, 2021. I want to touch on a couple of key witnesses in the case before we get to the outcome, though. Officer Robert Rash testified that there were 0 burglaries in the Satilla Shores neighborhood for the entire year leading up to the murder. He also said that he expected Gregory McMichael only to call the police if he saw Ahmaud Arbery, not to arm him himself or chase him. Then GBI agent Jason Sechrist said that Brian's story shifted and that he tried to make it seem like he played a minimal role in what happened, even though he caught everything on video and chased Ahmaud too. Officer Ricky Minshew described arriving to find Arbery dying in the road, and he shared how Gregory McMichael was telling Travis, "I had no choice," and that he was an a-hole. A GBI investigator named Richard Dial presented the drone mapped routes of the chase that we talked about earlier, and he confirmed that the GBI's view showed that there was clearly racial bias in this case, and it played a significant role in what happened. As many of you know, this is very rare to be able to prove, so it is huge that the lead investigator said that. Larry English was too sick to come testify in person, but he did provide a 4-hour video deposition on September 24th, 2021. That video was played on the 5th day of trial. The jury heard him confirm that nothing had ever been stolen from his construction site, that he had never authorized the McMichaels to confront anyone on his property, and that he had never even met Travis McMichael. He also said that he had spoken with Gregory only once or twice. The defense's claim that the McMichaels were just protecting their neighbor's property from a thief was shut down immediately because of English's testimony. On November 24th, 2021, after 10 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its verdicts. Travis McMichael was found guilty of malice murder. Gregory McMichael and William Bryan were each found guilty of felony murder, and all 3 men were convicted on the aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and other counts. The verdicts were unanimous. On January 7th, 2022, Superior Court Judge Timothy Walmsley sentenced Travis McMichael and Gregory McMichael to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 20 years. William Bryan was sentenced to life with the possibility of parole after 30 years. Before delivering those sentences, though, the judge said, "Remorse is something that's felt and demonstrated." He felt that after Ahmaud Arbery fell and the McMichaels turned their backs and walked away, they showed no remorse. He also said that Gregory McMichael had immediately begun working to set up his own narrative by telling Travis on the scene he had no choice, and then by calling DA Jackie Johnson on scene. In the eyes of the judge, Travis's first and only concern was his well being. It was never about Ahmaud. The Department of Justice also pursued a separate federal case on charges of hate crimes and attempted kidnapping. The federal trial was held in Brunswick, Georgia for this one, and it was wrapped up by February 22nd, 2022. After only 4 hours of deliberating, that jury found all three men guilty on all federal counts. Travis McMichael received another life sentence in federal prison plus 10 years. Gregory McMichael received another life sentence plus 7 years, and William Bryan received 35 years. The family had successfully fought to block an earlier plea deal that was proposed in January, where they were asking to be placed in a federal prison, which has much more comfortable conditions than the state prison. The judge luckily rejected that deal and sided with the family. Jackie Johnson, the former DA, was indicted in September of 2021 for violating her oath to public office and obstruction. Unfortunately, though, all of her charges were dropped by February 2025. She did lose her seat as the DA, though. In June 2020, the state of Georgia enacted a hate crimes legislation for the first time in over a decade because of what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. In May 2021, Governor Brian Kemp signed legislation repealing Georgia's Civil War-era citizens arrest law, which is the statute that the McMichaels attempted to cite as their reason for chasing Ahmaud down that day. I find it very ironic because this is the only type of arrest that McMichael could do because he never kept up on the hours as a police officer to continue wearing that badge. Wanda Cooper Jones was at the signing ceremony and she said, "Unfortunately, we had to lose my son in this manner. Had this bill been in place, I think it would have protected more young men as they're jogging down the street." On February 2nd, 2022, Georgia designated February 23rd as Ahmaud Arbery Day. The hashtag I Run With Maud movement led to thousands of people across the country running 2.23 miles on Ahmaud's 26th birthday in his memory. The Brunswick High School Pirates football team, which Ahmaud had played for, and whose coaches who had known and loved him, went undefeated during their 2020 season, and they credit Ahmaud Arbery because of this. At the sentencing hearing, Marcus Arbery Sr. addressed William Bryan and said, "You had time to think. You were on your porch that day, but all you saw was a black man running down the street." Wanda stood outside of the Glynn County Courthouse after the verdict was announced, and she said, "It's been a long fight. It's been a hard fight, but God is good. I never thought this day would come." She then said that she could now rest because her son could rest in peace. And if that doesn't hurt your heart, I don't know what would. Ahmaud's celebration of life was on February 29th, 2020, at the New Springfield Baptist Church in Waynesboro, Georgia. It was a beautiful turnout and celebration to honor him. His family, friends, and community still hold runs and walks on the anniversary of his passing, especially through the Satilla Shores neighborhood. Ahmaud Marquez Arbery was born on May 8, 1994, and he was only 25 years old when he died. He had so much life ahead of him. He loved to run. His smile made everyone's day. He was going to be an electrician, and he was going to go back to school that fall. He had told his best friend that he'd be happy to see him at the top, only to be murdered for exercising a couple of miles from home. He didn't deserve what happened to him, and I'm sending so much love to him and his family. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day-to-day to listen to Ahmaud's story. All cases are very painful and tragic in different ways, and the amount of hatred in this case is unbelievably disturbing to me. I'm sure that it was for you too, but I'm loving seeing all the new faces around here lately, and I forgot to mention in the last video that we should change our handshake to just a butterfly instead of a blue butterfly, because I found out that quite a few of you don't have a blue one. So if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to drop me a butterfly in the chat. Please be extra kind to yourselves this week, and don't forget to prioritize self-care and your own mental health because it's so important. Nurse's orders. I'll see you next weekend. Bye.